Okay, the first panel, I will be the moderator of the next DeFi narrative in 2025. And as the question one, we can see that there are many innovations this year, like RWA, stablecoins, and PointFi. And we can deny that many projects use this way to bring a lot of innovation to the DeFi ecosystem and has successfully to attract many liquidity from a lot of users. And what do you guys think? Is this way will continue, or is there a new way to bring a lot of innovation to the DeFi ecosystem? Yeah. And maybe we start from the Serafin.
Yeah, I think one interesting narrative that people resisted for a long time was CeFi within DeFi. For a long time, people were like, you have to do everything in a very kosher DeFi way, like Uniswap and Compound and Alvin did. And I do think it's probably with Ethena, who basically said, let's just actually integrate CeFi, which has most of the volumes, most of the open interest, which has the majority of all the users, and integrate them into a product. And since we scaled so much so quickly to $3 billion in like a matter of months, a lot of protocols realized we should probably integrate centralized exchanges, we should integrate custodians like Copper, CeFi, etc. So CeDeFi, I think, is still a big narrative.
And what about Jason?
Right, so I'm more from the mainnet side, so not on the product side, but what I've been seeing so far is a lot of low flow, high FTV meta, and all the point systems have been attracting a lot of liquidity to at least for 2024. But as a farmer myself, I also kind of feel a bit of fatigue, so it's a bit tiring. And I guess if we want to bring in more liquidity, more innovations, I do think points are not going to be continuously the trend ongoing. Although speculation is a very big part in crypto, I don't think that's the only thing that can fuel the engine. On the mainnet side, for Kaia, we're actually working with iMessenger and onboarding mini games. So building on an environment where there are already users might be one way to actually attract Web2 users into Web3. But yeah, on the product side, I guess we have to keep finding ways to get sustainable yields, either it's off-chain or on-chain. But yeah.
And as for PointFi market, we can see there are a lot of new models like make people efficiently to trade their points before the market begins. So I think there are still many innovative ways to surround all these kind of the token launch way. Yeah. And what about Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main challenge we've seen in DeFi is the points worked for maybe 12 months. Everyone was excited, but I think one of the challenges is that a lot of the DeFi protocols had built a very basic, a bunch of perpdexes got built, but like when you compare a singular product, perpdex, versus a CeFi exchange, to Serafin's point, like the products aren't comparable. Like what you can do if you're just trading perps, you can't trade spot options, you don't have all those primitives. It makes it challenging. So I think for DeFi to really take the next step, you have to actually build products that can really compete against CeFi. And so there's a lot of product build that needs to be done to make like an actual product that users want to use versus forcing them to essentially like trade artificially to get points. So I think we just have a lot of ways to do in terms of building products that will actually be valuable for users.
Yes, it's very important as the DeFi digital myself also find a new way to trade coins more efficiently, just like we trade in centralized exchanges. So I think it's very important to onboard more users to use the protocols, and that the next step will be mass adoption. Okay, let's go into the question 2. On the other hand, what risks do DeFi projects with high dependency with off-chain elements pose threats to the Web3 market, and how the different protocols to minimize the threat? We start from Jason.
Obviously, information off-chain, entering on-chain, you need a middleman. You either need a middleman or you have to be as transparent as possible. But to a certain extent, I do think users have to kind of believe in the team itself. I do you think there are some solutions in the market where you can make the process of moving your information off-chain to on-chain as transparent as possible? So on the builder side, I would say it's very important to utilize those tools, make effort as much as possible to actually make the process very transparent. I've seen in the market a few teams that have not been as transparent regarding
Yes.
points.
Yeah, I think the problem with CeFi typically is that it blows up. It's hard to trust. Voyager, FTX, etc. has taught us a lesson. But there's ways and there's innovation that basically happened as a result of that allowed you to use CeFi. Ethena is parking its assets mostly in custody. Custodian accounts like Copper, like Cepho, are not directly on the centralized exchange, and that was a key innovation that happened post FTX, where people just like, we don't want to park money at the actual exchanges, and the exchanges had to play more to keep the big clients. So I think custodian stuff was a pretty big piece of innovation there that we tapped into as a team. And I think it's moving more and more. If you look at what custodians are doing at the moment, it's moving more and more in the direction of completely on-chain stuff, where like every client or every user has their own sub-accounts which can be viewable on-chain. A very transparent form of proof of reserves is probably the trend for CeFi that makes people feel more comfortable down the line.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's such a broad question, right? Like, it depends. If you're talking about RWAs, like, there's a certain amount of risk that you're never going to be able to alleviate because you're tokenizing real-world assets and those are subject to seizure. You know, if the government decided one day to wake up and say, no, this product shouldn't exist. So I think some of the projects, there's just inherent risk, especially with the RWA world. I mean, there's different waves or different buckets of it. So like, if you look at some of the decentralized exchanges that are running hybrid models where their order books are off-chain, but settlement, clearing, and custody is on-chain, I think it's really just about like what do users care most about, which I think is self-custody and having their own assets in a way that the exchange can't rug users. You know, minimizing the trust assumptions that you need against the exchange. So you have to sign every order with your signature. All your funds are locked unless they're margining a specific position. And I think it's just about the transparency of what is on-chain, what's off-chain, and what are the trust assumptions you're making. And if you're very clear about that, I think that's the best you can do is you're dealing with the limitations of putting everything on-chain.
Okay, me again, and this topic will be covered because mass adoption is very crucial to it, especially for DeFi apps. And DeFi UX still persists significant problems to onboard new users. And for people who don't understand DeFi finance, how do you guys solve this problem?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is what I would probably identify as UX. I think a lot of people think about UX differently, but it's like from every step, if you think through every step that probably for now, for us has become very second nature, but starting with like even getting a wallet. I mean, a lot of times we think about like sign up versus sign in. Like it's so weird that we arrive on any kind of landing page in Web3 and we're immediately like, go get a wallet, it's like you have to go do something else and then you have to come back. So I think embedded wallets is obviously like a big part of that. But yeah, even everything we think like trading on different chains, that's such second nature to us. But like when you use Web 2 products, you don't think about like what servers are behind the scenes or like gas fees. You don't think about when Web 2 products, you're not thinking about like how many AWS credits are you using. So it's like, how can we kind of abstract away all of the things that are like the underlying infrastructure and tech into the UX to make it feel like, okay, in the case of Uniswap, I want this token. I have this token, I want this token. That's all the user needs to think about. They don't even need to think about like which chains, what gas fees being paid, like what other infrastructure they need to get there. So that's kind of the overall kind of, I think also what the Uniswap vision is as far as our products. It's like just making them as simple and usable as possible, which sounds easy, but is very complex under the hood.
Continue from the previous questions. There are many DeFi UX like solvers, hooks, and maybe intelligent AI that can make more users that perform many DeFi actions, even in one click. What model do you think could automate to make more people like DeFi apps accessible for people, even they don't understand DeFi?
It's giving developers the power to build like relevant experiences, right? So like when you said personalization, like DeFi is notoriously not known to personalize anything, so like it looks exactly the same for anybody else. I think coming from the background of how can we make this more relevant, and also the examples that you brought with hooks and other things or intent-based, this is all trying to kind of like abstract away what is in between and also point people into the right direction. And a lot of offer in DeFi. It's not like people cannot do enough. People can do too much at the moment and they feel overwhelmed. So I think thinking more about personalization when it comes to education, when it comes to pointing people in the right direction, or even like an infrastructure level.
There are many two types of DEX, like COOB or MMM, and depending on the characteristics of the asset. And there's still a debate, no matter the Solana ecosystem or the EVM ecosystem. And what do you guys think, which model is better and can great appeal to the retail users in the long run?
When we first started Synfutures, we started purely as an AMM. Now we're on V3, and we've combined a fully on-chain order book with a concentrated liquidity AMM, like with ranged liquidity, similar to Uniswap. The reason we did this, like you mentioned, there are some trade-offs of each, benefits and trade-offs of each. The order book brings a lot more depth to, especially like the majors, right? Majors still do most of the volume on our DEX, but we realize that AMMs are a great way to bootstrap new pairs. So this is, one of the things that we try to do is we're actually taking the Uniswap model, permissionless listings, and we're trying to bring it over to the perp side. So anyone can come list any pair, and you can't really do that with an order book without, sufficient kind of setup, like you need some kind of ramp up for it. Whereas with an AMM, someone can just provide, let's say, 10,000 or 5,000 in liquidity and get a pair that they can trade, that others can trade. So I think, when we looked at it, we thought, I think for scale and for volume, you need the order book for the pairs with the most volume and depth, but the AMM gives us a lot more flexibility in like the long tail assets that we can support.
LVR, one type of MEV and sandwich attacks, is quite a problem when people issue for protocols like yours, and how do you mitigate the risk?
It's an interesting panel, right? Because we started by talking about kind of the path to mass adoption, and then now we're chatting about MEV. And if we get to the point where like our family members and friends are using, DeFi, like they're not going to define MEV or really know about it. As it relates to our product, we use CalSwap as well, and we try and do everything that we can. I think over time, the industry, there's a lot of very talented people, including some of the folks at Uniswap, that are trying to solve this problem, and we're just kind of waiting for those solutions to come to market to then integrate it naturally into our product.